Oh, I am really sorry if you had some Friday afternoon or evening plans, because you are not going to get to them. Because we got 2 good hours of radio that you're not going to want to miss. The second hour is the game show and a super top secret celebrity guest when we get to the game show. Second hour, Arlo K. Usardbre. If you can speak Pig Latin, then you know who it is. This hour, some screen time with Deacon Stephen Greydanus. We're going to talk about film from a Catholic perspective, and this is always a treat. And so Stephen Greydanus is a deacon indeed, the creator of DecentFilms.com and the film critic for the National Catholic Register. He is a member of the New York Film Critics Circle and a permanent deacon in the Archdiocese of Newark, New Jersey. With David DeSerto, he co-hosts the Gabriel Award-winning cable TV show Real Faith for the New Evangelization Television, and they're in production right now on all their summer shows. And there's going to be a marathon of Real Faith on New Evangelization Television starting 8 p.m. Eastern Time next Friday. Deacon Stephen Greydanus, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here. This always feels like a homecoming for me because I got my start talking about movies in the Catholic faith right here on Catholic Answers Live 19 years ago, back in 2000.
Wow, think about that! And now you're big time. I mean, whenever the Register and all that, but you're also a member of the New York Film Critics Circle. That sounds like that maybe there's meetings in a place where people smoke pipes or that kind of thing, or I don't know, but it's that's lofty.
Yes, well, I'm not allowed to talk about those things, but
okay.
The awards dinner that we have every year is pretty fun. That is probably, these days, it's the coolest thing that I do as a film critic. It used to be back in the old days when Hollywood was throwing a lot of money at Christian film critics. Every once in a while, they would fly us out to Los Angeles or someplace else, and we would interview the big stars. But that doesn't happen anymore. So I lead a much more quiet life, and the most exciting thing I actually do is assist at the Mass and preach once a month or so.
Well, that's pretty good. I got to say, that's pretty good.
Indeed it is.
But it doesn't have the, what is that? The glamour. What is the thing we say at Easter time? We reject the glamour of evil. I'm not saying that flying to Los Angeles is evil, but it has a kind of glamour to it. Okay, so I can remember as in I think it was my high school youth group, we went to the movies and we saw Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth, as I think pretty much every youth group of that era did. And we have now lost Franco Zeffirelli.
Yeah, he died a couple of weeks ago, and his movie Jesus of Nazareth means a lot to me. For me, especially the first 105, 107, 112 minutes of it is the best filming of the nativity story, the story of the birth of Christ that has ever been committed to film, in my opinion. And in the Greydanus household, we watch that opening act every year at Christmas time. So I appreciate his work on that very much. I'm not as much a fan of his Francis of Assisi movie, Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, but he was a serious Catholic in his faith. He believed the teachings of the church. He was also a man whose lifestyle was wildly out of keeping with that. He was a homosexual and lived an openly, frankly, homosexual life. He has been accused in this era of Me Too of having sexually harassed and or assaulted a couple of actors who worked under him. And so, this raises a lot of questions for us as Catholics and not just for Catholics, but a lot of people in our culture today are asking in this era of Me Too, as we see, giants like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein fall and other people, shadows fall over their reputations. And yet sometimes they've created art that we care about. And so there are a lot of questions to ask about how we approach that and when someone's lifestyle poisons their art and when we can still appreciate it in some cases in spite of who they were.
I have to say, I feel myself somewhat in the category of art. If it's a beautiful work of art, it's a beautiful work of art. And it's okay to let yourself love it, even if the artist was bad. However, I must say, I get a very negative feeling when I look at Adolf Hitler's paintings. So I clearly am not fully. Well, they're not beautiful for one thing. Have you ever seen Hitler's paintings? Are not good. They are not good.
Well, so there you go.
But he painted a Madonna and Child, which I think might be the worst Madonna and Child ever painted. It is, but I guess my point though is okay. So certain figures, their art is going to be really irreparably tainted by their behavior. But a Mel Gibson, who I'm not sure all the things that Mel Gibson has done, but I know he had a drinking problem. Does that disqualify me from being able to appreciate Apocalypto as one of the greatest films ever made? It doesn't to me. Am I wrong in that?
It's a very good question, and it's a complicated question. In fact, it's not just one question, it's a number of different questions. I've written an article about this subject, taking Zeffirelli's life as a kind of point of departure. It's currently up at the National Catholic Register website, ncregister.com. It'll be up at Decent Films sometime over the weekend. And I try to take a look at some of those questions. So for me, I think you're right to struggle, because on the one hand, the relationship between an artist's life and their work the two can inform one another. I've seen some of the paintings of Fra Angelico, who is a canonized saint as well as a great artist, and there is a spirit of devotion in his work that flows, I believe, directly from his spirit. I don't think he could have been a debauched man and painted those paintings. And yet, I've also been to Rome and seen Caravaggio's The Conversion of St. Paul, and I've walked through the Vatican museums, and I've walked through the Raphael rooms. And The Conversion of St. Paul is a spectacular painting, and the Raphael rooms contain some of the most astonishing sacred art that's ever been produced, especially the Disputation on the Holy Sacrament, I think, captures the theology of the Holy Eucharist in a way that I haven't seen any other work of art do. And yet, Caravaggio was a violent brawler. He had a vicious temper. He was exiled for murder. Raphael was a confirmed ladies' man. He carried on a torrid affair with his favorite model, whose face he used more than once for the Madonna. And it goes on from there. So it is possible, I think, sometimes for artistic inspiration almost to flow through an artist, like in a way almost analogous to sacramental grace flowing through an unworthy priest. But then at other times, we can see how an artist's sinful tendencies can infect their work. Right. And I don't think you need to condemn Mel Gibson's work whole and entire in order to say perhaps there are some aspects of his affinity for violence, perhaps, or the anti-Semitism that he was brought up in, that have left at least some mark on his work.
I see. Well, when you look at Caravaggio, you think that guy could murder somebody. Like he looks, like it's so intense, the painting, but it doesn't take away from it's some of the greatest painting ever. So I don't know. Kevin Spacey is another one with all these problems. I suppose I don't want to rehearse everyone's problems, but brilliant work, like really brilliant work from Kevin Spacey.
And yet, in some cases, like I don't know about if this would apply to Hitler, even if he were a great painter. But when I think of somebody whose work is innocuous, like The Cosby Show. I mean, you might find an episode here and there that was a problem, but for me, no matter how innocent or wholesome an episode of The Cosby Show might be, I could never go back and just enjoy it, because to me, the show relies on your ability to feel the affection for Cliff Huxtable and in a way, for Bill Cosby, because he's really playing on his image as America's dad. And when we found out that image was a lie, it really seems to me to kind of radically undermine the work that he did that relied on that persona.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And it is actually kind of, there's something frightening about it too, if I may say. And we're talking movies with Deacon Stephen Gradanis, and you're welcome to get in on the conversation, 888-318-7884. Summer is the movie. Well, it used to be summer was the big movie time, but now I guess there's 4 or 5 of these periods, including the holiday season and what's called the holiday season and all that. But we'll talk about summer movies and all that. And if you have a question, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. But I was going to say, Deacon, there is something frightening when if you take a person like Bill Cosby. There's a kind of wisdom in his work as a comedian. It's not just that he's funny. There's a kind of something really wonderful in what Cosby's able to do. And then you think, but that disconnect is so great between that and what you later find out about him that it's almost frightens you about the human character.
You just used a really important word that I think not enough people pay attention to, which is disconnect. Yeah. That there's a disconnect. We talk about the virtue of integrity as if it meant only honesty and sincerity and trustworthiness. But what integrity really means, if you think about its non-moral meanings, like structural integrity, something that has structural integrity is something that doesn't fall apart. All of the parts are connected into an integral whole. And this is what happens with a person's personality. You can really become different people under different circumstances. Yeah. And we all kind of socially respond differently to different people under different circumstances. But if you have integrity, then there's a harmony among your different social selves. Who you are at work, who you are at home, who you are at church. They might be different, but they're in harmony with one another. What happens when you lack that virtue of integrity is you give yourself permission to become someone who is a fundamentally different person from that wise and wholesome person that you seem to be in other circumstances. And as you say, it is very frightening.
Man, that is such a well-made point. And I'll tell you what, if nothing else good happens this hour, you made it worth it. But I
45 minutes to go.
Yeah. No, if you keep piling it on like this could be a prize winner, this show. But I got to go to the break, but as you're speaking, I'm thinking this is a man who is an ordained minister, a deacon of the Catholic Church too. There's something about the sacraments that make that integrity possible. That actually kind of, if you surrender to the sacraments.
Yes, but at the same time, this is the kind of both and where if you are faithful to it, it can help you to have that integrity. But we've seen so clearly in people like McCarrick that you can also, that the grace of the sacrament can become the very thing that damns you, because McCarrick had that very same ability to become different people under different circumstances. He lacked that integrity. And unfortunately, that's, there's a lot of that in the Catholic Church today.
Stephen Gradanis, not afraid to name names, but we're going to talk about summer movies when we come back. We'll take a quick break and more with Deacon Stephen Gradanis, the film critic of the National Catholic Register, right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Go forth and preach the good news. It's not just a suggestion. If you want to take more seriously the command of Jesus to share the gospel with those around you, consider joining St. Paul Street Evangelization. It's a grassroots organization that brings the Catholic faith to the streets in a non-confrontational way. Visit our website, www.streetevangelization.com, to learn more. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. It's time to do our part.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Divine Intimacy Radio.
The greatest joy in my life is helping others to come to know Christ more fully. And there's no better light on this path, the path to deep union with God, than the wisdom of the saints. Talking about this daily on EWTN Radio is one of the great joys of my life.
Divine Intimacy Radio, Sunday, 6:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
I'm I'm going to venture out on a limb and say the greatest patron of the arts in the history of the world is the Catholic Church. And we Catholics, we don't talk about art enough. This should be something that's close to every Catholic's heart, and something that we are conversant in, especially in a world that has so devalued and degraded the idea of art in many ways. That's why we're always delighted to have Deacon Stephen Gradanis with us, a deacon of the Catholic Church, and also a man who understands art and spends his life exposing himself to our works of art and sharing them with us. Thanks again for being with us, Deacon Gradanis. Is it fair enough to say what I said about the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith? That should we be conversant in the arts?
The church itself tells us that we should be conversant in the arts, and not just in the arts of our own culture, but those of different cultures and subcultures around the world. You know, this is. It is no exaggeration to say that the Catholic Church has taken an image in motion pictures before the cinema existed. So before cinema was even a thing, that the different technologies in the late 19th century that were beginning to strain toward the cinema, the church was interested in. There were demonstrations in Catholic universities. One of the earliest films that was ever shot was of Pope Leo XIII in the Vatican in the 1890s. Clips of him in the Vatican gardens and on his papal throne giving a blessing to the camera were brought to the United States. They were shown to Catholics in New York and Boston and Chicago. And Pope Pius XI in Vigilante Cora 1936, the first papal document devoted entirely to the motion picture said there does not exist today a means of influencing the masses more potent than the cinema. So the cinema kind of sums up in itself all of the different aspects of the arts that the church has always taken an interest in. You know, we were talking before the break about the Raphael rooms in the Vatican museums, in the Apostolic Palace and the Sistine Chapel, and the art that decorates many of our churches. The church has always looked to the arts as a means of communication, as a means of communicating not only to the mind, but to the imagination. And what cinema does is it brings the power of pictures in motion, and combining it not only the visual arts, but all of the other arts. It's got the plastic arts, painting, sculpture, architecture, but it's also got the temporal arts, music, dance, poetry. You can subdivide the temporal arts into the performing arts and the literary arts. And so you have drama and acting and narrative prose. Cinema embraces all of these. For this reason, it's been called the synthesis of all of the arts.
Wow. And then and Catholics too have been great contributors there. I mean, you think of I don't know, from someone like Mel Gibson in the current state to you're going to have to help me because I always have trouble with names, but the guy who made A Wonderful Life, he was a Catholic, wasn't he?
Yes, Frank Capra.
Frank Capra.
Many of the early Hollywood directors were Catholics. Capra is certainly an example.
I was thinking too.
Alfred Hitchcock.
That's the one. Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola,
right.
Leo McCarey. So many of these filmmakers come from Catholic backgrounds, and I think that's not an accident. And there are a number of different reasons why that's the case, but certainly I think the cultural heritage of the church and the church's heritage of caring about visual arts informed the imaginations of these filmmakers. When you grow up in Gothic cathedrals and surrounded by magnificent art. We were talking before the break about Franco Zeffirelli.
Yeah.
So Franco Zeffirelli grew up in Florence. He grew up surrounded by the Renaissance, and that informed his approach to the arts. He was a designer, a producer, and a director of opera and theater, and he brought a real kind of florid drama to his works that was meant to reach out to the masses. You know, when we think of opera, we think of, something that's kind of snooty and highfalutin and not accessible. But Zeffirelli believed that enduring art is art that's meant to reach everyone. He said, can you imagine if some critics were to, say of the Sistine Chapel, oh, it's not in fashion anymore? Well, okay, but you may not like it, but let's make sure that we still have it for future generations.
Right.
And
Yeah. Yeah, without question. And that's, we always hear this multiculturalism, but one form of multiculturalism is to be able to sympathize with the people of the past. Their culture wasn't the same. It was like it's not there anymore. But it's not just people from different places in the world, but on the timeline as well.
absolutely, and that's one of the great things about the cinema is that you can go back and immerse yourself
Yeah.
to some extent or other, in the world of the 1940s or the 1920s. You can see what a Jesus movie looked like in the 1920s as filmed by Cecil B. DeMille in The King of Kings, and it's not like a film that we have today, and yet it has a power, and it communicates in its own way. You can even go back further to early Passion plays that are available on DVD, and get a sense of the religious imagination of the past. And this is something that we care about as Catholics. It's why when you crack open the Catechism of the Catholic Church, or even more, the Compendium of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that there are these color plates with images in them, because we cannot reduce the heritage of our faith to the spoken or the printed word. Images are a fundamental part of sacred tradition. They're a fundamental part of the way that we have handed on our faith. And for me, as a Catholic parent, as well as a deacon and a film critic, it's part of the way that I have tried to catechize and to develop the religious and the moral imaginations of my own children through the movies that we watch as a family.
We are going to talk about some of this summer's movies. There's folks on the line who'd like to talk with you, however, Deacon Greydonis. Would that be all right if we take some calls?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Will in Gulfport, Mississippi, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. You're up first today, Will. Thanks for downloading the app onto your phone. Your question for Deacon Greydonis.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to share with you there's an O.J. Simpson documentary out that was on ESPN the other day. I think it's called Made in America. It's got a very benign title. And
Yes.
I don't know if it's critically acclaimed and everything, but it had some really disturbing images, never before seen crime scene photos showing the actual desecrated bodies of the victims. And I was wondering, is that disrespectful to that victim and the family to show those images, and should movies or documentaries show those kinds of images?
That's a really good question, and it's a question for which it's, as with so many questions in the moral sphere, it's very in regard to the arts, it's very hard to give a clear or a black or white answer. One of the kind of guiding lights in my thought in regard to this are the wise words of a priest of the Oblates of the Virgin Mary that a reader once quoted to me, and I actually mentioned this in my article on Franco Zeffirelli. The Catholic Church teaches authoritatively, has always taught authoritatively, and will always teach authoritatively that the visual arts are a gray area. And that's not 100% accurate, but it gets at something that's very important. Let me just say that O.J. Made in America is an absolutely riveting documentary, 7.5 hours. It was produced for ESPN. It illuminates and critiques the various social spheres and cultural spheres in which O.J. Simpson kind of shaped his different public and private personas. We were talking before the break about the virtue of integrity and the way in which people take on different selves and fashion different selves, and are they in harmony? And I think very clearly O.J. is a person who's different. The different parts of his life were not in harmony, and the way in which he tried to escape or to conquer the different aspects of his world, I thought that O.J. Made in America was fantastic, and I do highly recommend it, with that very important caveat that it is a disturbing story and there are disturbing images in it. And there are all kinds of questions that we might ask ourselves at this point. Were the families of the victims consulted? I know that they participated in the making of the movie. They are interviewed in the movie. So I don't know. I can't say specifically that they gave their blessing to it or that they approved the use of the images. But so I can understand the concern. I wouldn't want to leap to any conclusions. And overall, even if there were a problem here, even if this was something where we had to say, this is something that shouldn't have been done, that doesn't take away entirely from the virtue of the documentary. I hope that helps.
Will, thank you very, very much. Appreciate the call. I had similar feelings about the documentary Senna. I don't know if you saw that about the race car driver.
I did.
Ayrton
Yes.
Senna. There's some really horrific stuff in there, but you kind of got to see that to know what we're talking about with Formula One racing.
Absolutely.
Also, a very fine documentary, I thought. Before I go to some movies that are coming out, you and I have had a disagreement in the past, slight disagreement about Tom Cruise. Did you see Fallout, Mission Impossible Fallout, and have you finally come to understand how good Tom Cruise is?
What are you talking about? You must be thinking of somebody else. I think Tom Cruise is great. Let's talk about him after the break.
Okay, we'll do that after the break and talk about some of the movies, including Spider-Man and Toy Story 4 and things coming out this summer. More of that right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew that she wanted those things, that in them somehow she would find God. Over the years as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
In his new audio presentation, The Very First Fathers, apologist Jimmy Akin takes you on a tour of the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. From the most famous figures and most notable works to those lesser known but no less important, this pivotal time in the development of the early church is revealed in fascinating detail. Jimmy shows how, even in the first century after the resurrection, it was necessary to defend and explain truths that are still under attack today, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the perpetual virginity of Mary. The Very First Fathers is a compelling look at the dawn of the Christian age and edifying listening for anyone who wants to understand and defend the full truth of Catholicism. Order your copy of The Very First Fathers today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker for your event? Catholic Answers speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Monday on More to Life, RESPECT.
What you want, baby, we got it. We're going to help you get a little respect.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Talking about the pictures with Deacon Stephen Gradanis, the film critic for the National Catholic Register and a member of the New York Film Critics Circle. Okay, so I was teasing you a little bit about Tom Cruise. I thought that we had a disagreement about him, but I may well have recollected that wrongly. But I'm a fan of Tom Cruise. I think he does a good job.
I think he's wonderful to watch in the right role, and the right role is. For me, it's a role that gives him the ability to be really intense because he has this laser-like intensity like nobody else. I think the first time I really became aware of it was in the famous CIA break-in sequence in Brian De Palma's Mission Impossible back in 1996. Yeah. And which is not a great movie, but he's so great in that scene. And it's a great scene. De Palma really did scenes rather than whole movies. And he it took him 3 or 4 movies to kind of figure out who Ethan Hunt was. But I think the last 3 Mission Impossible movies, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and now Fallout, I think that they're the most vital, ongoing Hollywood blockbuster franchise that there is. Full disclosure, I haven't seen the John Wicks yet. I have to catch up on that.
Do you?
But yeah, well, I've heard really good things about it. But what I love about Ethan Hunt, besides the fact that the action and the choreography in these is really so wonderful, and his commitment to doing the stunts himself, this is a Catholic show, and you're wondering where am I going with this as a Catholic, but there's an integrity and a truthfulness to images that convey something about the real world without being purely faked, right?
Yeah.
So when you see a character seem to do some amazing stunt, but it's chopped up into 37 different cuts, and you only see each for like a split second, and it's all in close-ups. Did you really see anything at all? There was a famous Catholic film theorist, Andre Bazin, who really made film studies the academic discipline that it is today. He was a Catholic, and for him, cinema had the power to preserve something of the truth of creation itself. And, there's a reason why it's exciting when you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and you get the shot under the Nazi truck, and you can see that it's really Harrison Ford hanging on for dear life to that bullwhip as he's being dragged to the road. Yes, it's a stunt. Yes, they're driving really slowly. Yes, he's wearing pads under his clothing. But there's still it wasn't just stitched together with computers.
Yes.
Not that they had computers back then, but you see my point.
I do.
Tom Cruise is committed to doing these stunts himself, and there's a kind of a partnership there that he's offering something to you, the viewer. This is his gift to you, and it's really kind of beautiful in a way.
You get it. You get it. See, now I know you get it. Speaking of franchises, the biggest franchise in the history of the world just closed a chapter with the Avengers Endgame. But
yes.
I guess we're opening up again a new chapter with Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes, that's right. So Spider-Man was one of the characters who disappeared in Infinity War. 5 years later, he was brought back in Endgame. So this is Tom Holland's Spider-Man kind of catching up with his life. And the first Spider-Man Holland movie was called Homecoming. It was a play on words because there was a homecoming dance, but it was also the character's homecoming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's a long story about film rights there that I won't get into. This one is called Far From Home. So he goes on a class trip with his family, or not with his family, with his classmates, a school trip to Europe, and he visits different European cities. And while he's there, of course, the Earth is attacked. And I have to say, I think that the whole Infinity War Endgame saga was done really remarkably well when you consider the scale of it and just how ambitious that storytelling was. What I enjoyed about Homecoming was it was just a superhero movie. It was a self-contained story. It wasn't tying up loose threads from 100 other things, although you can't get out entirely from under the shadow of the Infinity War. And it isn't necessarily building toward anything either. It's about a boy who likes a girl, Zendaya's MJ, and who spends the whole movie wanting to tell her how he feels about her. And, the teenage behavior is fairly true to life and the emotions. And, yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, I'm glad to hear. Well, we're underway again then with a new. I don't know if it'll be a 20-story arc like the last one was. I believe I've said this to you before, but I think if the Avengers had ended with Infinity War, just ended there, it would have been the greatest ending ever in the history. That was the proper place to end it. But they had to bring everybody back, so we have another Spider-Man. What about Toy Story? Toy Story's got another movie, Toy Story 4. This is a franchise that's revolutionary, truly revolutionary, revolutionized movies.
Yes, absolutely. The first Toy Story, which came out in 1995, changed the world, and it was perfect and it was brilliant. There's so many interesting moral and philosophical and artistic themes to talk about in the Toy Story movies. But the important thing to understand here is that a little bit like with Spider-Man Far From Home, the Toy Story saga, which could have been completed with the first film, it could have been complete with the second one, they went on to a third film, and they really brought the story of Woody and Andy to a close. And with that third film, we see that it was really always about Woody and Andy. It wasn't Woody and Buzz, it was Woody and Andy. And now with Toy Story 4, it's a new chapter, it's a new story. It's not continuing the same story anymore. And there are some fascinating philosophical questions that they get into with regard to the consciousness of toys and what is it that makes a toy alive. And when Bonnie, the little girl who inherits Woody and all the rest, takes a plastic fork and wraps pipe cleaner arms around it and sticks googly eyes onto it, and suddenly it wakes up and it's a living spork, plastic spork, and it wants to throw itself in the garbage because it doesn't understand that it's no longer a piece of junk. Now it's a toy. And you know, this raises for me, I start thinking about Thomas Aquinas and Catholic natural law theory and teleology, because the whole Toy Story world is based on teleology, which is the foundation of Catholic natural law theory, the idea that things have a purpose. And so toys naturally find fulfillment in what they're made for, which is to be played with by children. But here's a spork that wants to throw itself away. It hasn't yet glommed to the idea that love has given a deeper purpose. Here we get into kind of John Paul II Christian personalism, the idea that we find our true identity in love.
And that is fascinating.
I can say so much more.
Because teleology is basically what's missing from our society. We don't anymore think that things can be known by their purpose. We think that they're known by what made them. If evolution made me, then that's how I know myself. That's what I am. I'm just a product of evolution. Not I have a purpose that leads on to glory.
That's right. And so there is this kind of tension, even in Toy Story 4, between, you know, the idea that the toy has a destiny, that there is nothing nobler than loving a child and being loved by a child. And then the idea, embodied in another character, that maybe it's okay for toys to kind of outlive their lifetime as playthings and then kind of go off on their own and have adventures. And here we get into a different metaphor in the Toy Story world, which is the idea of toys as surrogate parents. In the second Toy Story movie, particularly, Woody he's a surrogate parent figure who fears the empty nest. He fears being left on a shelf by Andy when he grows up and goes off to college, and it gives him a profound crisis about his relationship with Andy. And so when you look at it from that way, the idea of toys kind of having a life after their kids grow up isn't as disturbing as it might seem otherwise.
888-318-7884 is the number. We're talking movies, summer movies, and all others this hour with Deacon Stephen Gradanis, the film critic for the National Catholic Register. 888-318-7884. I'm going to give you a minute to dial that phone because I got to remind people that a lot of stuff is coming to an end here as this month ends here at Catholic Answers. The Catholic Answers magazine sale ends when the month ends, and that's the one where you can get $10 off a 1-year subscription and $20 off a 2-year subscription to the greatest Catholic magazine on earth. You just go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com and you can get it, but you got to get it before the end of the weekend. Then it won't be available anymore after that. But the other thing that's going away is the early bird pricing for the conference. We've got the Catholic Answers annual conference, September 26th through 29th. The early church was the Catholic Church is the theme of the conference. Everybody around here is thrilled because it really is looking like this is going to be the best conference we've ever done. And the early bird pricing goes away on Tuesday of next week. So that's just a little bit of time left to get your tickets to go to the conference. And I got to say, they're not very expensive. You'll be surprised. It's a pretty good deal. Get that early bird pricing over at CatholicAnswersConference.com. CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The wisdom of Mother Angelica.
I said to the sisters one day, what do you think you're going to look like in heaven? Oh, some of them had absolutely magnificent ideas. I didn't think of one of them. And so I got desperate because then my turn came. I didn't know what to say. And so in desperation, I said, what do you think I'll wear in heaven? And they all said with one voice, armor.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Okay, we covered Spider-Man, Far From Home, Toy Story 4 with Deacon Stephen Greydonis. More to cover. Did we get to everything you wanted to get to on those two, Deacon?
You know, I like to talk about the fun things about the movies and what it is that I like about them, but we should also note that many of these movies that have positive qualities also have areas of concern. And in regard to Toy Story 4, one of my main concerns has to do with an area where Pixar has historically done really well. When you watch Pixar movies, they don't do the usual thing of family films, especially Disney films, of celebrating the hero against adversity, that, you know, the parents are against him, the society's against him, but he does or she does their own thing, and in the end they're vindicated. The protagonists in Toy Story movies are morally complicated. They make mistakes. They mess up, and then they have to face the music. They have to realize, oh my gosh, I knocked Buzz Lightyear out of a window because I was jealous, and now I've lost Andy's favorite toy. You know, I've run away from home, and I'm on a bus going back to my hometown. I have to get back to my parents. This kind of thing.
Well, you've ruined the movies for me now, by the way. I haven't seen any of them, so now they're ruined.
In Toy Story 4, though, there's a character who does one of the worst things that anyone has ever done in any Pixar movie, and certainly in any Toy Story movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the character is basically a villain, worse than Lotso Huggin' Bear from Toy Story 3. And then the movie takes this character on a kind of quasi-redemptive arc without any real moral reckoning with the truly heinous things that have been done. And I don't mind a movie that redeems the villain. I like it when a movie redeems the villain, but I feel like there needed to be more of an honest facing up to what happened, and that didn't happen. And that to me is a real miss for Toy Story 4. For Spider-Man, you know, there are different things that didn't work. The one thing that really sticks out to me, because it kind of rhymes with a moment that I didn't like in Spider-Man Homecoming, is the porn joke. There's a pornography joke in both of these Spider-Man movies, and the fact that it recurs makes me think there's somebody on the creative team that wants to make this a recurring thing in the Spider-Man movies. And Spider-Man is probably the single Marvel character that little kids are most interested in. I know my little boy really looks up to Spider-Man, and I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is streaming on Netflix. If you have Netflix, second best movie of last year, according to me, maybe the best. Wonderful family film, wonderful cartoon, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, family friendly compared to Spider-Man Far From Home, which is a movie that now, you know, I'm not going to take my kids to, and that porn joke is part of the reason why.
All right. I'm glad we were able to visit those. One of the things that I like when you're on, too, is that you kind of have your hand on the pulse of what's going on in the world of documentaries, and a lot is going on. Any good documentaries you want to point us to, or maybe bad ones you want to point us away from?
Well, you know, I always wish that I knew more about documentaries than I do, and there's so much going on in that world. But I happened to be at Sundance Film Festival in January, and I saw a film which is coming to theaters in August. And you, Catholic listener, you want to see One Child Nation. This is it's a cultural inquiry, it's a political expose, it's a personal journey about China's infamous one-child policy from a pair of filmmakers, Nanfu Wang and Xiaoling Zhang, who grew up in China under the one-child policy, and it pieces together the costs and the methods of the policy, the human rights abuses. Wang goes back to China. She interviews family members, local officials, people who are affected by this. We learn about the propaganda campaign that was just surrounded and immersed people in imbuing this total loyalty to the infallible party and its wise policy. And, you see some people who are really guilty about this. We hear from a midwife who is really racked by guilt over the forced abortions that she participated in. And now she spends her life trying to help infertile couples conceive as a result of this. We also see, a village official who feels sorry for himself and talks about how hard it was in those days. It's only 85 minutes long. A movie like this could always do more, but One Child Nation, you want to talk about a movie that has implicit pro-life resonances. This is definitely going to be on my top 10 films this coming year.
I am so glad to hear that you recommended that. I didn't know about this film, but this is one of the great horrors of the 20th century and 21st century that Western media utterly missed. I mean, people barely know about it. I'm so glad that you found that film and that you were able to recommend it for us. One Child Nation, I will definitely find that. What about anything else? Anything else grabbing you that you want to let us know about? There are a few things that I'm looking forward to on the horizon, but it's always changing as we get close to them, and I prefer to talk about movies as they come out. All right, Dark Phoenix is it the greatest movie ever? I haven't seen it yet.
Superhero culture really dominates pop culture these days. And I have to say that X-Men, the original X-Men back in 2000, which really opened the door to the world that we live in today, it also gave us the character who remains for me after, 11 years of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the single most genuinely inspiring superhero on the cinema of comic books today, which is Patrick Stewart's Professor Xavier.
Oh yeah, ultimate decent hero.
Well, but see, okay, so Captain America is decent.
Okay.
But the question is he anything other than decent? What does the guy really stand for? Does he stand for freedom, truth, justice, and the American way? No, because you can't sell tickets in China if you're gonna have a genuinely patriotic hero. But Professor X has an ideal. He has a true vision for a better world, a world in which humans and mutants can coexist in harmony. He's like the Martin Luther King figure of his world. And then, of course, you have Magneto, Ian McKellen's Magneto, as the sort of Malcolm X figure, the guy who wants what's good for my people by any means necessary. A little more kind of Nation of Islam, fire and brimstone. And so I find that guy inspiring because he speaks to me about the world that I live in a powerful way, and because he's played by Patrick Stewart, who's awesome. So Dark Phoenix is the close of this kind of second chapter of the X-Men world, in which Professor X is mostly played throughout the series by James McAvoy, who is brilliant and wonderful, but he's playing a much shallower and obviously younger version of the character, but a character who doesn't ever seem to be growing up to be Patrick Stewart. And instead of this kind of real moral ideal, there's a constant cross-examining of him. Does he really want a better world for mutants and humans living together, or does he just want survival for his people? Or is he just in it for the glory, to be acclaimed on the world stage? All of these accusations are thrown at him, and at least some of them are true. This is the second Hollywood take on a very famous storyline from the comics, the Dark Phoenix saga, first told in the third X-Men movie, The Last Stand, universally considered one of the worst movies. This movie is now at least that bad, unfortunately. So it's a sad ending to a franchise that began really strongly, and that as recently as Days of Future Past, which brought back Patrick Stewart in at least part of its split storyline storytelling, really tapped the power of this franchise.
Well, does the world end in Dark Phoenix? Because every other movie, the world is ending, and this seems to have real spiritual or religious importance in a way. The fact that the world is constantly in our movies. We've got Godzilla out now. We've got just one after another.
And not just on the big screen, but on the small screen too. You've got the Walking Dead and Battlestar Galactica.
Is this a wish? Are we wishing for all of this to end because our lives have become uncomfortable in late modernity?
It's a good question. I wrote an article on what I call the secular apocalypse, and I'm not the first Christian thinker to take on this story. There's also There's also a book called How to Survive the Apocalypse by Alyssa Wilkinson, a Christian film critic, and Robert Joustra, which I recommend. And they look at this trend that I believe they are both Protestants, but they look at the trend through the philosophy of the Catholic philosopher Charles Taylor, who talks about how he interprets what it means to be secular in our times. And it's not just the decline of religion, it's the decline of a kind of social context in which religious categories have any kind of common frame of reference, in which society kind of has a picture for you for what is meaning and what is truth. And we all have to kind of create and invent our own meaning. And between the kind of subjectivity and relativity of our age, and then also what Pope Benedict XVI has pointed to in the disappointment of modernity and the passing into post-modernity and then even post-everything culture or post-culture that we live in. There was a time when the modernists told us, when Gene Roddenberry told us that the future was going to be shining and great and science progress, we're going to make everything wonderful. We weren't going to be racist anymore. That we were going to cleanse the earth. We were going to just ascend, and we weren't going to have any more sickness. And what's happening in reality? People are more concerned than ever about climate change and microplastics in the ocean. And now sociologists tell us that racism is embedded in social institutions in a much more profound way than we thought in the 1960s. Civil rights is going to solve all this, and now it doesn't look like these kinds of issues are going away. So I think all of these things together kind of add up to an anxiety because we're not satisfied with where we are. We know that we're made for something more than this, and yet we no longer have a picture of what that something is. We don't know what the kingdom looks like anymore. Gene Roddenberry tried to sell us on an alternate kingdom of heaven, the Federation, and we don't believe in that anymore either. And that's why we're in the kind of despairing place that we're in.
So that's what you see is despair. That these secular apocalypses. When you think of something like The Walking Dead, it's just it really does look like despair.
It's not that there's no hope.
Right.
There are signs of hope in many of these stories, not in all of them. Some of them end with complete annihilation, with total destruction. Joss Whedon's he co-wrote Cabin in the Woods, which starts off as a kind of horror spoof, but then morphs into a truly despairing end of the world story in which humanity is just not worth saving. And the movie The Dead Don't Die, which is in theaters right now, from Jim Jarmusch, who directed Patterson, my favorite film from a couple of years ago, Patterson. This is a zombie movie, a zombie apocalypse, and Adam Driver keeps saying throughout the movie, this isn't going to end well, and it doesn't.
Yeah, well, it's something to think of because I wonder too how much there's something about the apocalypse. There's something about the end of the world that makes you feel alive, and it makes you think that the reason we have to keep having these apocalyptic fantasies in our movies is we actually feel dead.
Yes, absolutely. It is a way of feeling alive, a way of stimulating yourself to feel something. And I think it's worth paying attention to these stories, even when some of them are profound and well done, others of them are boring or bad or even offensive, but all of them in some way hold up a mirror to the soul of the culture that created it, which is also a culture. Whether we like it or not, whether we want it or not, we are all products of that culture. We exist in that culture. And so understanding it is a way sometimes of recognizing what's good about it, but also of consciously rejecting what's bad, and of being able to have a conversation with our non-Christian or our non-Catholic neighbors about where we are as a culture, understanding what are the shared stories and images that enable us to communicate, that kind of inform our thinking.
And then heading out to the movies is actually a kind of social act now, where people are rejecting social acts. It's not sitting in your house just streaming videos to yourself. It at least has some quality of a shared experience, and I think that makes us feel alive as well.
It can, especially when it's a movie that, isn't just the latest blockbuster that people stumble to because advertising told them to. When you go to see a smaller movie, even a movie like The Dead Don't Die, if you go to the theaters and see Jim Jarmusch's The Dead Don't Die, you'll be one of like 4 or 5 people in the theater. But everyone there chose to be there, probably because in many cases they like some of Jarmusch's other films, and you can sometimes have interesting conversations after experiences like that.
Deacon Stephen Gradanis, may we have your blessing before we go?
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you. The Lord be gracious unto you now and forever and give you his peace. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Deacon. I really love these conversations. Wait a second. Teleology and Charles Taylor came up in a... I thought I was the only one who knew Charles Taylor. I'm so glad. He's one of my favorites. I'm so glad you mentioned him. You can find Deacon Stephen Gradanis over at the National Catholic Register. You can also, next Friday night on New Evangelization Television, catch the marathon of Stephen Gradanis' television program, Real... Oh, wait. What's the second word? Real
Faith.
Real Faith.
Real Faith.
I lost it there for a second. Thanks again, Deacon. Coming up, game show. You don't want to miss it. Thank you, Deacon. Yeah, maybe. But it was a lot of fun. Oh, are you serious? That rocks. Wow, that's so cool. That's funny. Oh yeah. That's not the regular music. That's the game show music. Which means I am your game show host this hour, Cy Kellett, and we have two contestants in studio, and it is going to be a rocking game show today. I think the questions are really hard, so get out a piece of paper and a pencil, and gather Grandma and Grandpa and the kids around the radio, and you can play along at home, see who really knows their stuff about the early church, because all the questions are about the earliest years of the Catholic Church. You can probably guess why. Oh, well, in case you can't, we're having a big conference coming up called The Early Church Was the Catholic Church. And so we're taking the occasion of this game show to kind of promote that a little bit and to tie in with that. Our super secret celebrity guest is the author of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. He's got a brand new, I got to reach over here and get it. He's got a brand new CD called What Lies Beyond, Understanding Purgatory, Heaven, and Hell. Carlo Broussard, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Cy. I'll affirm the secret guess, but take out the celebrity part.
Okay. Well, you're always our
That's
first
too
choice.
high of a standard, man. I can't reach that.
You know you're always our first choice for the game show.
Well, thank you, Cy. I'll be sure not to let the other guys know.
Okay. Yes, especially Tim Staples. Don't let him know. And we will meet our contestants momentarily, and then I will go over the rules, and then the fun begins. As I said, get pencil and paper ready. You're going to want to play along at home. I don't know who's contestant number one and who's contestant number two. Let's go. Okay, well, I'm just going to go by who's closest to me then, because it does become important if there's a tie. That's the only time it becomes important. So you will be contestant number one. And contestant number one, who are you and what's interesting about you?
Hi, my name is Megan, and one interesting fact about me is that I was just received into the Catholic Church this Easter.
Yay! Yay! If Nick was here, we'd have cheering sound effects for that. But Darren is filling in for Nick. Which parish were you here in San Diego?
Yes, at the Immaculata. So I hope that I win and don't embarrass my RCIA director.
Yes. If you lose, can we name your RCIA director on the air?
We'll think about it.
But she actually does have something else interesting, right?
Yes,
I do. Yes, I have what I think is the best last name for a convert. And
your best last name for a convert to the Catholic Church?
Yes.
Is it Mary and Joseph?
It is not.
It is not. What is your last name?
Luther.
Luther. We need, you know what? We need more
great.
Luthers in the Catholic
That's
Church.
great. Amen.
Happy to have you, Megan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And you will be contestant number two.
Yes.
And who are you and what's interesting about you?
My name is Moises. I'm a student at JP Catholic, which is only up the street in Escondido.
We got to say the full name because people, we got to give them their props. John Paul
the Great Catholic University.
Yep. Up in Escondido here.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to know something interesting about me. I recently got engaged.
Ooh, fantastic.
Yeah, and you met my fiance, my now fiance, a few months back before we were engaged. So shout out to Madeline Peterson.
Oh, okay. So we met at a dinner for the Children of the Immaculate Heart.
Yes.
By the way, let me give another shout out. If you don't know about the Children of the Immaculate Heart, go on the internet and find out about the Children of the Immaculate Heart. Grace and all the women there at Children of the Immaculate Heart are spending their lives helping people who are survivors of sex trafficking. They do so with all the resources that are at their disposal, and they do so with a heart of faith in the love of Jesus Christ to heal anybody at any time. And that's so nice that you were there. I mean, I had to be there. I was emceeing the event, but God bless you for going, Moises.
Yeah, it was a fun event.
Yeah. And they're good people.
That's pretty good that you remembered meeting his fiance.
Well, until he said her name, I was like, I don't know who this guy is engaged to. But then he said her. I was like, okay, no, I remember meeting Moises.
Awesome.
That's why I gave him the answers.
I was
before the
about
show
to. I was
started.
about to say that's
So,
not good,
Megan,
man.
welcome to
You
the
might have
Catholic
slipped him
Church,
the answers.
where everything is rigged against you. Okay, so I got to go over the rules with the two of you. There's a lot of rules to being Catholic, as you have found out. You've been through RCIA,
Yeah.
right? You got to follow all the rules. Name one. Name one rule. Can you think of a rule that you have to follow to be Catholic?
A rule that you have to follow to be Catholic.
Yeah. Oh boy, this was good RCIA you went through.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything?
I mean,
Thou shalt not
kill.
Okay, good for you, Megan. All right. Okay, here's the rules. There will be 3 rounds of the game show. The last round is called Final Judgment. In order for you to make it to Final Judgment, you have to win the first 2 rounds. Okay, so after the first 2 rounds, one of you will be given a wonderful prize and asked to leave. Okay, it'll be nice. It'll be very polite the way we do it, but you'll be asked to leave. The other one will play Final Judgment. All right, and I'll go over the rules for Final Judgment when we get there. The first 2 rounds, in the first round, I should say, you will each receive 3 multiple choice questions, and you get 1 point for each one you get right. In the second round, it's exactly the same. You each get 3 multiple choice questions and 1 point for each one you get right. Whoever has the most points at the end of 2 rounds goes to their Final Judgment. If it is a tie, Megan is contestant number 1. She will pick one of these 2 boxes, and inside of it, it will tell us who is the winner, the one that you pick. Okay? Can you handle that responsibility?
Yes.
Okay. It's like when you go on an airplane.
I was thinking the same thing.
Can you sit in that row? Are you able to open a door? Can you sit in that row?
You read my mind.
Yeah,
man.
I always say yes because I like that leg room.
Amen.
Carlo knows what I'm talking about. He travels all the time. Okay, so there's one other rule that I have to get clear to you. You have 2 lifelines. Once you have used one, it's gone. You don't get it back in the second round. And you can't use any of them in the third round. There's no life. So use up your 2 lifelines. They are as follows. And this is primarily why Carlo Broussard, the author of Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church, is here. Because lifeline number 1 is you can ask him to whittle your multiple choice question down to just 2 answers. So you just have 2 choices left. All right, he'll take away one of the choices. The other thing that you can ask Carlo to do is just give you the correct answer. If you just feel stumped, just ask him to give you the correct answer. There is, however, a catch. Carlo has to give it to you in Pig Latin.
I was about to say, what? The Pig Latin's gone now? Fantastic.
This is one of my favorite things that ever happens here, is hearing Carlo talk in Pig Latin.
And we must assume that you guys, because I had to learn what Pig Latin was.
Do you know what Pig Latin is? Do either of you know what Pig Latin is?
Fully fluent.
You're fully fluent in Pig Latin?
Oh, wow.
Moises?
So you say a word and you use the last letter of in the front or in the back, or it's something weird like that.
Yeah, you know about it as much of it as Carlo does. You're supposed to take the first letter, put it on the end. So like school, you take the first letter, then the S, and you put it on the end, and then you add the sound A. So
Coolse.
No.
Coolse.
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 Coolse is school. Am I right about that, Erica? Well, you're fluent, Megan. Did I do that right?
I think your pronunciation was beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very proud of my Pig Latin. Are you guys ready? You guys ready to start?
Yep.
All
Let's
right.
do it.
Contestant number 1, your first question of round 1. The first bishop of Rome after the death of Peter was A, John, B, Linus, C, we have no historical record of this. The first bishop of Rome, if you're playing at home, I like to repeat them for you. The first bishop of Rome after the death of Peter was A, John, B, Linus, C, we have no historical record of this.
That would be B, Linus.
All right, we'll go Immaculata RCIA teachers. Nice. Did you just guess at that, or did you know that?
I knew that. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. Darren told me that one of the answers should have been Schroeder. I should have put, because do you know why?
No.
You don't? Oh, Charlie Brown, Linus, and Schroeder. Are, but I thought that might. Anyway, going on to contestant number 2. Your first question, contestant number 2. Are you ready, contestant number 2, Moises?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Mm-hmm. Which of the following is the name of an early pope? A. Clement, B. Matthew, C. Timothy. Which of the following is the name of an early pope? A. Clement, B. Matthew, C. Timothy.
A. Clement.
Ding! Fantastic. Yeah, so both of these questions, we actually get knowledge of this all the way back from AD 180 from St. Irenaeus of Lyon in his great work Against Heresies. He tells us how the blessed apostles founded the church in Rome, and the bishopric went to Linus, succeeding Peter, and then he tells us to him succeeded Anacletus, and after him, in the third place from the apostles, Clement was allotted the bishopric. And both Linus and Clement are mentioned in Scripture in a variety of a couple of places, different places. At least it's believed to be those two.
Is Anacletus sometimes called Cletus? Is that though?
In one of the listing of the popes that we do find, you do have a Cletus and an Anacletus as separate two individuals. So there's a bit of a discrepancy in the listing of the popes. But this list from St. Irenaeus, he just has Anacletus.
All right. Well, you can probably get... Well, no, I've already told you why our theme for today is the early church, because our big conference this year is themed The Early Church Was the Catholic Church. It's September 26th through 29th at the Hyatt Regency La Jolla in beautiful and sunny San Diego. Our celebrity guest, Carla Broussard, will be giving a talk on... What are you talking on?
The early church's view of the sacraments. So we'll be... surveying what the early church fathers, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries had to say about baptism, the Eucharist, confession, and the other sacraments as well. So,
all right. I was getting nervous as you talked about it, because there's some questions on that very topic coming up. So I was scared you were going to say some stuff,
right.
but you did good.
I did all right.
You did all right.
I didn't give any answers away, right?
Tim Staples will be there. Jimmy Akin will be giving a talk and leading square dancing. Trent Horn will be there. We've got wonderful guests for you. Monsignor Eugene Morris, Father David McConey. Rod Bennett's going to be there. And one of the prizes today is Rod Bennett's book. Bishop Frank Caggiano from Bridgeport, Connecticut is going to be there. We're going to do the radio show twice. We'll do it in the foyer on Thursday, and then we do the big show on Friday, where everybody gets to just come up and ask questions. Early bird pricing ends July 2nd, which sounds like a long way off, but it's not. It's a few days from now. So you want to get your tickets soon. Seats are limited. I looked into this. This is true. Seats are limited.
Let's fill them up.
That's actually true of every event that's ever been held, however, because that's an empirical fact. Seats are limited. Full conference ticket includes the banquet dinner and keynote address by Bishop Caggiano. $154 a night for the room. That's for our block of rooms, and we are over 90% full on those.
Oh, wow.
So you not only do you get the early bird special, but you'll be able to get a room if you do that soon. CatholicAnswersConference.com is the place to go. CatholicAnswersConference.com. And at the end of this program, during Final Judgment, I don't know if anybody told you this, but you guys will be playing, the person who's left at Final Judgment will be playing for a free ticket. What's up? That's right.
Wow.
And yeah, I'll find out at the break if that includes dinner. I don't know if it does. We might not be feeding you. I don't know. Does it? Oh, she says it does. I guess it has to now that I said that. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll finish the game show. We'll come back.
Catholic Answers, the most trusted name in Catholic apologetics.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
The best way to pray is simply to open our minds and our hearts to God, to allow His presence to begin to fill us, to restore us, to refresh us, to make us new. The best way to pray is simply to be aware of that presence and to say yes to it, to give fiat to that presence as our Blessed Lady did. In that way, we delight in prayer, and God Himself delights in us.
Welcome back to the Catholic Answers game show. Carlo Broussard, our special guest, and our contestants are Megan and Moises. We are in the midst of round one, and Megan, time for your second question. You ready?
Yes.
All right, Megan. Which sacraments were founded personally by Jesus? A, baptism, Eucharist, and holy orders. B, baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation. C, all seven. Megan, which sacraments were founded personally by Jesus? A, baptism, Eucharist, and holy orders. B, baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation. Or C, all seven.
Okay.
It's radio, so you don't have to, if we just all sit here quietly while you think, that's perfectly fine.
I gotcha.
Especially for the people at home, that is just fun.
So,
okay, so
yeah.
I don't know.
Can I think out loud? Is that?
Yeah, go ahead. Think out. Oh, that's good.
Remember, you have lifelines.
I like this thinking out loud
I forgot
thing.
about the lifelines. Okay. Can I have the choices one more time?
Yes, you can. As the people, if you're playing along at home, the question was, which sacraments were founded personally by Jesus? A, baptism, Eucharist, and holy orders. B, baptism, Eucharist, and confirmation. C, all seven.
Okay. I want to say...
You can think out loud all you want, and then I'll say final answer. I'll say, is that your final answer? It'll be like that TV show.
I want to say C, all of them.
You do? Okay, is that your final answer? Is it? Is that your final answer?
Okay,
is it?
so...
Look at my face. Is that your final?
That is my final answer.
Wow!
You got it right. Good job, Megan.
What sound was that? Was that the yes, you got it sound or the no?
That was
okay, that was the yes.
Neutral.
Because I got scared. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, actually, I didn't realize
Don't worry,
this.
Moises, I'm going to help you.
I didn't realize this earlier, but it is a bit tricky because you emphasize personally. And it's true, Jesus personally gave us all seven sacraments, but what you immediately start thinking of is the certain Bible passages.
Exactly.
And you're thinking like, well, I don't know, confirmation, there's no explicit evidence that Jesus gave it personally, like in the case of the sacrament of confession or the Eucharist. So some are more evident than others, and so you begin thinking that. So good job, you did well.
But what did the Council of Trent say about this?
Well, all seven of the sacraments have been given to us by Christ. As the Catechism states in paragraph 1131, the sacraments are efficacious signs of grace instituted by Christ and entrusted to the Church, by which divine life is dispensed to us.
All right, you didn't feel that I helped you at all in any underhanded way.
No,
on that one.
that was all my own knowledge.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay, Moises, you ready for your question?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Question number two for Moises. Get your pens and pencils ready at home. Which of these is an early heresy combated by the Church? A, monotheism. B, Gnosticism. C, Hellenism. Again, if you're playing along at home, which of these is an early heresy combated by the Church? A, monotheism. B, Gnosticism. Or C, Hellenism.
B, Gnosticism.
Ding! Good job, Moises. Awesome, man.
What is it? What's Gnosticism?
Yeah, well, Gnosticism entailed the belief that matter was evil, spirit was good, and basically we had to do what we could to avoid things of the material world. So you have a hint of this Gnostic influence in the first century. For example, in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, where St. Paul talks about those who promote doctrines of demons, motivated by deceitful spirits, those who reject marriage and abstain from certain foods. And then we get a hint that this is what Paul is combating, or the Gnostic belief is what Paul is combating, because he begins to articulate how all things are good which come from God. And so we have a hint that this is probably what Paul was referring to. He wasn't denying celibacy. He wasn't denying abstaining from certain foods at particular times. He was denying those who reject marriage and certain foods because they view matter as evil.
Is it fair to say that the incarnation of Christ is an indication from God that matter is not evil?
You could say it's an affirmation of. I mean, in as much as God creates matter and sustains it in existence, we know it's good coming from the good Creator. So we can know that philosophically. But through the incarnation, you have God supernaturally putting His stamp of approval on that natural truth that we can come to know by the natural light of human reason. Amen. But not only saying it's good, but actually elevating matter to and using matter on a whole new level in order to give grace through the sacraments.
Megan, you ready for your third question?
Go for it.
Yeah, I just gotta let you know we're on camera right now, so try not to look completely bored when Carlo and I are discussing ancient heresies. All right. Try not to look like you're falling asleep. Okay, Megan, your question. The Gospels were written A, roughly 30 to 60 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. B, roughly 1 to 2 centuries after Jesus' death and resurrection. C, it is hard to say because they were written and rewritten so many times. Again, if you're playing along at home, the Gospels were written A, roughly 30 to 60 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. B, roughly 1 to 2 centuries after Jesus' death and resurrection. C, it is hard to say because they were written and rewritten so many times.
I'm going to go with A.
Roughly 30 to 60 years.
Good job, Megan. Excellent. Good work.
Got anything to say about that, Carlo? We're paying you money to be here, Carlo. You should have something to say about this.
Yeah, we actually have good evidence for this. For example, Irenaeus, St. Irenaeus in AD 180, once again in that work against heresy, he tells us that Matthew published his gospel among the Hebrews while Peter and Paul were preaching in Rome and founding the church. So that would make it so the Gospel of Matthew would be no later than AD like 67, 68 at the latest, right? But we even could push it back earlier because scholars have good reason to think that the book of Acts was written in AD 62. Some will even say AD 60. And since we know that's the sequel to Luke's Gospel, that makes Luke's Gospel around AD 60, AD 59. We know Matthew and Mark wrote before Luke's Gospel, so you're putting Matthew and Mark literally within 30 years.
30 years.
Within 30 years of Jesus' death and resurrection. So that's a very good thing for us to have as Christians, because the closer the Gospels are to the events that they're recording, the more reliable they are in accurately conveying that which Jesus said and did.
You know, we hear about all these lost Gospels and Gnostic Gospels and stuff like that. How many of them were written before Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
None.
Oh, okay. Moises, you ready for your third question?
Yeah, ready.
All right. Moises, the last gospel written is usually thought to be the gospel of A, John, B, Luke, C, Matthew. Again, if you're playing along at home, the question is this. The last gospel written is usually thought to be the gospel of A, John, B, Luke, C, Matthew.
A, John.
That is correct.
I feel like we kind of almost gave that away. I was looking over there like, I hope Moises is not listening because we're giving him the answer.
We helped. You helped make it out a little bit.
I don't think I did help her at all.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Can I say too, Megan did a really good job of looking like she was interested when you were giving that second answer. Yeah, good work bringing up your game, Megan.
Thank you.
It's 3-3 now, right? Are we tied 3-3? Is anybody keeping score?
Fantastic.
Okay, we're tied 3-3. Moises hitting it out of the park, man. There wasn't even any fear in you. You just knew it.
Yeah, it is interesting, though. So commonly scholars will date John's Gospel anywhere around AD 90 to 100, at the end of the first century. However, there are a minority of biblical scholars that give some reasons why they think possibly John may have even written before the destruction of the temple.
Wow, that would make all the Gospels very close to Jesus.
Yeah, it's a very small group, but there are some.
All right, it's time for round 2 then. We have arrived at round 2. We are tied 3-3 after the first round. Contestant 1, Megan, you will go first again. Ready for your first question of round 2?
Yes.
And, by the way, you both have both of your lifelines left, so do not forget, especially, please, even if you don't need it, at some point use the Pig Latin one. I just got to hear Carlo do Pig Latin.
But not on this next one.
Yeah, do it on the ones with really long answers. Okay, Megan, the Edict of Milan A, made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. B, made it legal to practice Christianity throughout the empire. C, created the office of bishop within the church. Once again, for those playing at home, the Edict of Milan. A, made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. B, made it legal to practice Christianity throughout the empire. Or C, created the office of bishop within the church.
I'm going to use one of my lifelines.
All right.
Which one do you want?
I'll use the one where we whittle it down
All
to
right.
the 2 answers.
Okay, so I am going to take away A, made Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. So that leaves you with B, made it legal to practice Christianity throughout the empire, or C, created the office of bishop within the church.
That's perfect because I was going between A and B, so B it is.
All right.
Nicely done. I was hoping you would
Good
pick
teamwork.
A, Carla, because that was definitely the one to
I
eliminate.
was generous. I was nice.
Right. Excellent use. However, I was so hoping that would be the Pig Latin one, because come on, he would have had to say, Aid me, date lay, eagle lay, ute, actus pray. I can't even do it. Hey, it's the Catholic Answers game show, and we're coming up. Well, I guess we're at the halfway point of round 2. We're almost tied, but Moises is behind only because he's one question behind. So he'll get the first question as we come back from the break. See you then. Catholic Answers Live.
In his new audio presentation, The Very First Fathers, apologist Jimmy Akin takes you on a tour of the earliest Christian writings outside the New Testament. From the most famous figures and most notable works to those lesser known but no less important, this pivotal time in the development of the early church is revealed in fascinating detail. Jimmy shows how, even in the first century after the resurrection, it was necessary to defend and explain truths that are still under attack today, such as the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the perpetual virginity of Mary. The Very First Fathers is a compelling look at the dawn of the Christian age and edifying listening for anyone who wants to understand and defend the full truth of Catholicism. Order your copy of The Very First Fathers today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Love and beauty. As a little girl, Dawn Eden Goldstein knew that she wanted those things, that in them somehow she would find God. Over the years as a rock journalist, she moved among some of popular music's best-known artists, straining to capture that transcendent love and beauty in every note and lyric. In Sunday Will Never Be the Same, Dawn recounts her spiritual journey in beautifully wrought detail, mixing powerful accounts of trauma, healing, and epiphany with funny anecdotes from inside the music scene. It is the rare conversion story that delights as it inspires, amuses as it edifies, and ultimately lays before the reader a lived testimony to the transforming grace of Christ. Order your copy of Sunday Will Never Be the Same by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker for your event? Catholic Answers speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Monday on More to Life, RESPECT.
What you want, baby, we got it. We're going to help you get a little respect.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
It's so nice to have our contestants in the studio with us, Megan and Moises, fighting it out for a fabulous room full of gifts and prizes. And it really is delightful. Thank you both for coming down and being with us here in the studio today.
Thanks for having us.
Was it hard to find us? Did you?
No,
No,
not at all.
The signage is very subtle. We don't want too many people to know that we're hiding in this building.
To be honest, the worst thing was the traffic coming down here.
Oh, would you have to come down like the I-5 or something, or
The 15, right?
Oh, because you were in Escondido.
Just wherever Google Maps was taking me.
You don't even know. That's so funny.
Not really.
People don't know where they are anymore. It's like Google Maps says this is where I am.
Coming down the 15 from Escondido.
Escondido.
From Escondido. It's brutal, man. I know. I drive it often.
All right, so we got your first question of the second round, Moises.
Oh, yes.
You ready? Oh, and I should allow the listening audience to know we have a slight headphone problem in Moises's headphones. So if he has if he gets any questions wrong or anything, we're just probably going to declare him the winner and send Megan home. So I just want you to know that.
Okay.
I don't want you to give up, Megan, but I just want people to be aware that there's a slight headphone issue affecting Moises's performance. Moises, the earliest Christian church did not have A, a special reverence for Mary. B, a sacrament for anointing the sick. C, a fully developed New Testament canon. For those playing at home, the earliest Christian church did not have A, a special reverence for Mary. B, a sacrament for anointing the sick. C, a fully developed New Testament canon.
Okay. How early do you mean?
I specifically said earliest.
Okay, the earliest, so then it would be C.
Nice.
Good job, Moises. Yeah,
Nicely.
very clever. Very good question. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, within, 15, 20 years, you start to get scripture because you have the letters of St. Paul, right? So
Well, sure, you got the Gospels, right?
And then the Gospels shortly after that.
That's right. So you have the content of the New Testament, but there wasn't necessarily a settled, definitive canon of the New Testament. That developed, and there was debate about what was considered to be a part of the canon for several years. I mean, hundreds of years, all the way until the late of the 4th century. So you had New Testament documents like Philippians, 1 Timothy, Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, doubted as to whether it was scripture. And then other non-inspired historical Christian documents, such as the Epistle of Barnabas and the Shepherd of Hermas, that some Christians thought were inspired.
Yeah.
So there was.
Seems like you need a church to settle all of this.
And
It doesn't seem like Sola Scriptura would do
That
it.
would seem very reasonable, and that's why Jesus did give us the church. And then finally, in the late 4th century, with Pope Damasus I and the Synod of Rome around, I think it was AD 382, is when you sort of have this, not necessarily definitive, but an authoritative, at least, codification of these books we consider to be inspired, and there wasn't much debate after that. That was sort of the consensus of what was taken to be the inspired scriptures, and then infallibly defined later in the 16th century at the Council of Trent.
We should discuss this at our big conference, September 26th through 29th at the Hyatt Regency La Jolla in beautiful sunny San Diego.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, we should have the conference should be called "The Early Church Was the Catholic Church." Yeah, as a matter of fact, that is what it's called. And early bird special is still going on until next Tuesday. CatholicAnswersConference.com. We'll discuss. We definitely will be discussing how the Catholic Church gave us what we call a little thing called the Bible. Did that come out wrong? Did it sound kind of snarky the way I said that? Sorry. Your question number 2, Megan. Women in the early church, A, were, because of Jewish tradition, not permitted into official worship. B, oh man, I have the wrong one. Do you have the right one? Can I read it off yours, or do you have the?
I think what you meant to say was, number 1, women in the early church were not permitted to participate
in worship,
in official worship.
Or B, I don't have a B, so I need you to help.
Oh,
me.
you don't have the
No,
B.
no.
Oh, you ready?
Yes.
B, women in the early church were expected to love their enemies and pray for those who persecuted them. Or C, not permitted to participate in public ministry.
So which one were women in the church? Which of these is true about women in the church? They were not permitted to participate in official worship. They were expected to love their enemies and pray for those who persecuted them, or they were not permitted to participate in public ministry. Which one? I know I've messed that up so many ways. Maybe you should just get him to do the...
I probably should just take that last lifeline.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes.
Oh, man. Here we go. All right. You ready, Megan?
I'm ready.
All right. Here we go. Listen carefully. Irwe expectae ote ovele Herte, Nemise. Nemise.
I love the way you have an accent. No one else has an accent. It's like you.
Repe, Orphe, Thosete, Howe, Ersecute, Pe, Himte.
Can
you repeat that? Oh, yes. Megan is my favorite. I got to give her a prize just for that. Here, this book is new from Jimmy Akin, the New Testament 20, just for saying, can you repeat that? And no, he's not going to repeat it. It'll kill him. So, do you know what he was saying?
I believe that he was saying B.
Yes, very good. That was pretty difficult. I don't know if I would have been able to follow that and be able to.
But let me just tell you what the problem was. I wrote a question and then I gave it to Carlo, and Carlo said rewrite it. And the version that we have, and that's actually the version you read, is the one that I didn't rewrite. This was the bad version. Remember, you told me to take that part out and fix that, and it would have been much clearer the way Carlo told me to write it. So I have the unredacted version here. Sorry, but you got it right. And you just had to use a lifeline.
Oh, it was participate. That was the only thing. We just needed to say they weren't permitted to participate. And that's actually what I said, but that's not what's on the screen.
Right, exactly. We got to move on. Moises, your question number 2.
Okay.
And your headphones, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, good, because I don't want to have to cancel Megan. This early church father was said to have been a disciple of St. John the Apostle. A, Eusebius of Caesarea, B, Colossus of Rhodes, or C, Polycarp of Smyrna. Again, for those playing at home, this early church father was said to have been a disciple of St. John the Apostle. A, Eusebius of Caesarea, B, Colossus of Rhodes, C, Polycarp of Smyrna.
C, Polycarp.
Oh, you couldn't just make him do that in like Pig Latin? You couldn't do that for me, Moises.
He could still do it.
Go ahead, Carlo.
Olicorpepe.
Ooh, I'm going to start saying that.
Foe, Myrnace.
Myrnace. And you are correct. It is Polycarp of Smyrna. How do you know that? That's very obscure.
I studied early church 2 quarters ago.
Really?
Awesome. Father Enkidu.
That seems so. Oh, you studied with a wonderful priest too, and Megan just came into the church. Seems like bullying, really. I'm going to call this bullying.
Not fair. I'm sorry.
The follow-up question is, where do we get that tradition from?
I don't actually know, but I think it's Ignatius. I think we get it from
close Irenaeus.
Irenaeus. Oh, yeah.
Good job, Derek.
He gave me the negative sound effect.
Actually, both Irenaeus and Tertullian record that Polycarp had been a disciple of John the Apostle. That's where the tradition comes from.
It is wonderful
and
if
there's any source earlier than Irenaeus, then I'd like to know as well. I may be mistaken, but I know for sure Irenaeus and Tertullian.
Are you doing research now, or are we doing a radio show? Like, I'd like to know.
Radio show. Ready, set, go.
All right, question number 3 to you, Megan. Wait, no, that's not the correct question number 3. Okay, Megan. In his second letter, Peter says, we will one day, A, see the divine nature, B, touch the divine nature, C, share in the divine nature. For those playing at home, the question is this. In his second letter, Peter says, we will one day, A, see the divine nature, B, touch the divine nature, C, share in the divine nature.
Well, I have no more lifelines, correct?
That is correct.
I'm all out.
And I can't cheat because it's not fair to Moises. I cheated before. I feel guilty about it. I'm going to have to go see Father Hugh Barber after this.
I'm going to go with C, share in the divine nature. Yes.
Very good, Megan.
That was good.
It was. And actually, it was even better because the way you phrased the question, it said, Peter says, we will one day partake of the divine nature. But in fact, what St. Peter says in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 4, is that inasmuch as we come into Christ,
we are sharers.
We partake of the divine nature. So it's not just something of the future, but it's a reality that we get to experience here and now, inasmuch as we're in grace and members of the mystical body of Christ.
Quick point. I let you read that question before. You could have corrected me before we were on the air.
I missed it, man.
Thanks, Carlo Broussard. Is there any chance next time we do a game show we could maybe get Tim Staples in here? Can we maybe schedule it now while we're on the air? We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back to finish the game show. We'll find out how Moises does with question number 3, and then we'll see who's going on to their final judgment.
Hi, this is Phillip Rivers, NFL quarterback, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
What's stopping you from becoming a Catholic?
Why can't women become priests?
I don't understand why I have to earn salvation.
How is it possible that God created everything?
Why do I need to confess my sins to a
Why is the
priest?
Catholic Church so unwilling to The Catholic Church is too rich.
Catholics worship Mary and are committed. As far as I'm concerned, all religions are equal.
You are called to communion with Dr. David Anders. Tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern, on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It is the game show today. Our super secret celebrity guest is Carla Broussard. Our contestants are both local folks. Megan, who entered the church at the Easter season, and on whose behalf we have therefore been cheating, and Moises, who is a student at the wonderful Catholic University up the road from us, John Paul the Great Catholic University. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And again, Moises is having a little trouble with his earphones, so I might have to cheat on his behalf. This is your last question of round 2.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Moises, this gospel writer was probably writing what he had heard from St. Peter. A, John, B, Luke, C, Mark. For those playing at home, this gospel writer was probably writing what he had heard from St. Peter. A, John, B, Luke, C, Mark.
I'm gonna go
you have
with...
one. You have one lifeline. I just want to remind you of that in case. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but did that mess you up?
No, you know,
Just
yeah,
use it.
I'll use it. I'll use it.
Okay, which lifeline do you have left?
Sorry, I'll use...
You have the 50-50 or you have them both left?
I have both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do the Pig Latin one.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Arc me.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to say? Or no? You were unsure?
So, yeah. I was going to do Mark, but for a minute I thought Luke.
I was going to say.
I was like, no, because it can't be John.
It could be Luke in a way because Luke says he asked a lot of people. He says right in the gospel. Right. So one of them could have been Peter. But Mark is apparently a disciple of Peter, right?
Yeah, well, we know from Eusebius records has a quote from an early Christian writer, Papias, who tells us that Mark, having become the interpreter of Peter, wrote down accurately whatsoever he remembered. So that's where the tradition comes from.
Okay, so we are tied after 2 rounds. As a matter of fact, it's perfect scores for both of you so far. I don't recall perfect scores for both contestants before. It might have happened, but this is a very high IQ group. And so I tell you what, the person who will, one of you has to go home now. And well, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And the way we'll do that is Megan's going to pick one of these boxes, and then we do whatever it says inside that box. And but the person who goes is going to get 2 really fine prizes. One is the CD from Carla Broussard called "What Lies Beyond: Understanding Purgatory, Heaven, and Hell," which is available now at shop.catholic.com for download or in CD format. And you will also be getting a copy of Carlo Broussard's book, Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. Carlo doesn't even know this, but I stole this from him. It's a signed copy of Carlo's book.
Wow.
Carlo's book. So you're getting a signed copy of Carlo's book, Prepare the Way. So Megan, it's pure chance now. So I can't help either one of you. I don't really want to help either one of you either. So Megan, just pick A or B.
I'm going to go with B.
B it is. Inside box B, it says, "Congratulations, you advanced."
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's it?
Bye.
Moises is so bummed. Let's see what A says, just so you know you didn't. Sorry, you do not advance. So it wasn't rigged.
No.
It wasn't rigged. Did you come in here before the show by any chance and take a look inside the
No,
boxes?
I actually picked that because I like gold better than silver.
Okay.
That was it.
Moises, here's your signed copy
you go.
and your and your
Hey, wait a minute.
CD.
Do y'all change out the boxes?
Carlo, doggone it, Carlo. We never have changed the boxes. It's always been if you pick B, you go on. But I didn't want to say that.
I didn't know that.
Now I don't know what to do for
Darren's
next time.
making notes. Darren's making notes.
All right, well, for next time we're probably going to change it, but maybe not. I don't know. Moises, it wasn't cheating. She didn't know. All right. Thanks a lot, Carlo.
So do I just skedaddle on?
Yeah. You can hang around. I mean,
Moises, thank you so much, brother. It was
You're
such a
good
blast
sport.
having
Thank you.
you, man.
Really, thank you very much for coming down.
No, it was a pleasure being here.
Yeah, you can still hang out with us.
We should do a thing where a bunch of students from
that would be
cool. From your school, John Paul the Great Catholic University, come down and we'll just do like open forum for John Paul the Great Catholic University.
Ooh,
sometime.
that sounds great.
Can you organize that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. All right, good. You're leaving with 2 prizes and a job. Thanks. Okay, it's time. Megan, it is time. Megan Luther.
Yes.
It is time for your final judgment.
Okay.
Are you ready for final judgment?
In the game, yes.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. It will be 7 true or false questions. Before each question, I will hold up a prize. If you get the question correct, you win the prize.
Ooh.
In addition, if you get all 7 correct, we have Erica Olson sitting right there, and she will present you with a free ticket, including dinner with Bishop Caggiano, to the Catholic Answers annual conference. The early church was the Catholic Church. Okay? Wow. You got to get all 7 correct, however.
Ooh, okay.
All right, what do I do with the prizes? Okay, here they are.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
When I hear Luther, I think of Lex Luthor before Martin Luther.
I was supposed to give
Does that like say something about me? Like I'm a superhero geek
You're
or
not
something?
very religious. I think I was supposed to give this to Moises too, huh? Should I give it to him or can I just keep it now? I mean, he doesn't know that he was going to get it. All right, Moises, you're supposed to get this too. It's a Catholic Answers mug, and it's clean and wrapped in that because we never opened it. And I have to say this. You can't get that online. You can't go to the shop and buy one of those. You have to come into the studio to get one. So maybe later on eBay you can make some money with that. I don't know. All right, time for your final judgment. For your first question, question, you'll be playing for Inseparable. This was Book of the Year last year in my mind. 5 perspectives on sex, life, and love in defense of Humanae Vitae. It sounds like it's about contraception, but it's about so much more. It's about the fullness of living as a Catholic person. You're going to love it. I hope you win it. True or false? The earliest church liturgies were all in Latin. The earliest church liturgies were all in Latin. True or false?
False.
Good job, Megan.
You got that right. Why? What language were they in? I thought they were all in. I thought if you want to have a traditional mass, it has to be in Latin, Carlo.
Megan, which language did Jesus celebrate the first liturgy in?
Aramaic?
There you
Oh
go.
my gosh. What are they doing at the RCIA over at the Immaculata?
Immaculata.
That is like the world class of. If you want to go to RCIA, go over to the Immaculata. Apparently, you learn everything over there. All right. So question number 2, you're still in the running for the ticket. Question number 2, you're playing for our good friend Dawn Eden Goldstein's book, Sunday Will Never Be the Same. A rock and roll journalist opens her ears to God. Dawn is a wonderful person, and this is a fantastic read. It's kind of a memoir, kind of a story of conversion. You'll love it. True or false, Jesus prophesied that the temple would be destroyed, and in 70 AD, it was. True or false, Jesus prophesied that the temple would be destroyed, and in 70 AD, it was.
True.
Amen to that.
Man, no fear there. You're still in the running. Woo-hoo. Ready? This time you're playing for Counterfeit Christs, Trent Horn's brand new book. Counterfeit Christs, Finding the Real Jesus Among the Imposters.
And by the way, her answer was the real Jesus. He did prophesy.
Yeah,
and
that's
he came
right.
to fulfill.
Exactly. That was the real Jesus. Whenever we're giving away Trent's books, I always have to say this. You don't have to accept it if you don't want it. Okay? Question number 3, true or false?
Poor Trent.
In the early 300s, Eusebius gave a list of the popes going back to Peter. Number 3, true or false? In the early 300s, Eusebius gave a list of the popes going back to Peter.
Oh, gosh.
True or false?
I'm just going to have to flip a coin. True.
Woo!
Good coin
My
flip.
gosh. And you're still in the running for the free tickets.
right.
Amazing.
That was a pretty difficult question because
That was.
Irenaeus gives us the first list in AD 180.
Okay.
And then Eusebius repeats that list in his writings. So that was a pretty tricky question. Good job. That was a good guess.
All right, question number 4. You're playing for this tote bag that you can keep your books in. It's the Catholic Answers to Explain and Defend the Faith tiny tote bag. And if you, I'm going to give another one to Moises.
I was about to say,
you're going to play for one for Moises and one for you. And you can keep, I don't know what, they're small.
like
Anyways, all right.
one book,
We're getting
maybe?
near the end, though. I got to go quicker. True or false, the earliest non-biblical... Start again. True or false, the earliest non-biblical Christian text is probably the Didache, written before the year 100. Megan, true or false, the earliest non-biblical Christian text is probably the Didache, written before the year 100.
True.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, good job.
She's
good
killing
job.
it.
Yeah,
one of those is for
around
Moises.
AD
You won a bag
70.
for Moises.
AD 70.
All right. Number 5. True or false? The Didache says that people must be baptized in cold water. True or false? The Didache says that people must be baptized in cold water. You're playing for Made This Way.
False.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Good
It
job.
is false. Yes.
It actually says
it
cold
just-
or
I
hot.
thought- Yeah, you can. It pretty much says, look, baptize this way. If you can't do it that way, do it this way. If you can't do it that way, do it this. It was like
Yep.
5 different ways to
And
baptize.
pouring water 3 times upon the head is mentioned as well. That's
Yeah.
one of the meanings.
Right. Okay, now you're playing. I've run out of things over here. So now you're playing for. Well, look, you're still in the running for the ticket. But wait, no, I got a better thing than this. I'm going to get a book off the shelf over here. It's called The Apostasy That Wasn't. This is perfect for this show. Tell her about The Apostasy That Wasn't while I go get it. This is Rod Bennett's book.
Yeah, it's a great book, great read that tells you basically what the title embodies, the apostasy that wasn't, that the church never fell into a great apostasy to where the church had to be like sort of underground for all of these many centuries, but that the church was, as Christ promised, to be indefectible and not lose its true identity.
Rod Bennett, by the way, will be at the conference, and you're still in the running for the ticket to the conference. He'll be talking about the book. You can go to CatholicAnswersConference.com if you're not Megan and you want to go. Megan, true or false? Early Christians never referred to women as deacons or apostles. Megan, true or false? Early Christians never referred to women as deacons or apostles.
Oh gosh. I don't have any lifelines in this round, do I? True? Oh no!
Man, that's a tough one right there, brother.
I was second guessing myself on that one.
Yeah,
Also.
yeah. Phoebe's referred to as a deaconess in Romans 16:1, just because she was a servant, and the Greek word simply means a servant. And as far as the apostles part, that's a tricky one, because in Romans 16:7, you have an individual named Junius or Junia mentioned, and it says, Paul says, greet Andronicus and Junia. They are well known, as the Greek suggests, among the apostles. So there's an indication. It's not like one of the apostles among the 12.
Yeah. So,
but just apostle.
Yeah. So,
That's
however,
a tough one, man.
I can read like her expressions. We've worked together for quite a while, me and Erica, and her expression said, "Let her play for the ticket." I could see it. Was that your expression? She says, "Sure."
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Erica.
so you're still playing for the ticket, and you could play for the same book too. All right, so you
Okay.
can win the book and the ticket if you get this one
I get
correct.
this last
All
one.
right, this is your last question.
Okay.
Oh, time's up. I'm sorry, we don't have any more time. No, just kidding. Megan, true or false? Early Christians were forbidden by the church to worship idols. Megan, true or false? Early Christians were forbidden by the church to worship idols.
True.
What's up? You won! Woo! I wish we had cheering sound effects like we do when Nick's here. Woo!
Good job, Megan.
Yay! Oh, look at that! He found the cheering. Again, Moises and Megan, thank you both. Megan, congratulations on your haul.
Yeah.
You're probably going to need another
I
bag.
might need a bigger bag.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I know you just get multiple
I just
bags
get
because I don't
multiple
have a
bags.
bigger bag.
And welcome home.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
how wonderful! What a good kind of example you are for the RCIA.
Thanks.
Amen.
You're,
Amen to
you're,
that.
You're a poster child for the RCIA. And Moises, really, you're going to organize that thing. We're going to have a bunch of students come down from the university, and we'll do John Paul the Great Catholic University Open Forum one day.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, very good. Oh, what? This just in. I did not know this. Erica Olson says Moises gets a free ticket to the conference as well.
Hey.
Congratulations, Moises, because you were perfect. You got a perfect score, so she gave.
That's true.
Awesome. Wait, and Cy gets a free pizza. No? Okay, no, nothing doing there. Carla Broussard,
hey, man.
Congratulations on your book, Prepare the Way.
Thank you, brother.
On your new CD.
Thank you.
Which is called
What Lies Beyond.
What Lies Beyond. It's a spooky title.
A
It's
new
about
book
heaven,
coming
hell,
up in
and
the
purgatory.
fall, Meeting the Protestant Challenge.
Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live. That was great. Good job. You two were wonderful. Thank you both for coming. That was really good. Does Moises come with a dinner? He gets the dinner too, or he just has to go home at the dinner? No, he gets for the dinner too. Okay, good.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Very, very good. That was a lot of fun. I know how we ended up with Moises, because I got in touch with somebody. But how did we end up with you, Megan?
I'm friends with Marie.
You are? Yeah. And this kind of paid off then, because that's a struggle to be friends with Marie.
I actually